Good morning, dear students. Once again, we are here to discuss RDE Worksheet 49 from your chapter Heredity and Evolution. Right? This is our new chapter. Today, we will start our new chapter, that is Heredity and Evolution. Now, in this chapter, you come across a few new terminologies. So, please concentrate on all these. Okay? First, see, we have hereditary. What is hereditary? Transmission of traits and characteristics from one generation to other, or from parents to their offsprings. Okay, the transmission of traits or the characteristics from one generation to other generations. You must have seen while talking few that she resembles to her mother, she or he resembles to his father and all. So this is because of the transmission of characteristics from parents to their offspring. So this process is known as hereditary. So the transmission of traits and characteristics from one generation to another generation is called as hereditary. What is variation? The difference between the characteristics or the traits among the individual of the same species are called as variations. Okay, the differences between the characteristics or the traits is nothing but the characteristics. Okay, so trait among the individual of same species, right? When there are some changes due to so many factors, right? There are small changes in two individuals of the same species. They are called as then that term is called as variation. So what is variation? The difference between the characteristics or the traits among the individual of the same species is known as variation. Okay, in this box they have shown you structure of cell, in which this is the structure of chromosome, where the gene is present, and on the genes we have DNA, which is the main hereditary material, or you can say genetic material. Okay, so in eukaryotic cells, genetic material is present in the nucleus in chromosome, right? In eukaryotic cells, the genetic material is present in the nucleus in chromosome, as I told you. Chromosomes are nothing but the thread-like structure which carry the genetic information from one generation to another generation. This is the chromosome. On chromosome, various genes are present, and various genes carry DNA. So basic genetic material is DNA, and chromosomes are thread-like structure which carry this genetic information through DNA from one generation to another generation. Chromosomes are made up of DNA and protein, right? They play vital role in the cell division. As you know, the uh, an organism form with the help of cell division, so they play very important role in the process of cell division. Okay, DNA is nothing but deoxyribose nucleic acid. It is a hereditary material in human as well as all most of other all organisms. Nearly every cell in a person's body has the same DNA. Most DNA is located in the cell nucleus. Most DNA is located in the cell nucleus, where it is called as nuclear DNA. It is called as nuclear DNA. But a small amount of DNA can also be found in mitochondria. Okay, small amount of DNA also present in mitochondria. As you have already studied in 9th, they have their own DNA. A trait. Now, what is the definition of trait? A trait is a specific, again, a new terminology for you, like this, and this. A trait is a specific characteristics of an organism, right? Particular characteristics of an organism is called as trait, and trait can be determined by the genes and or the environment, or more commonly by interaction between them. So traits, how we can determine about the traits? Traits are determined with the help of genes or the effect of environment or the interaction between both environment as well as genes, right? Now coming to genes. What are genes? Genes are the basic and functional unit of heredity. As I told you, on DNA is present on gene, which carry all the genetic information from one generation to other generation. So genes are the basic and functional unit of heredity. So if the one marker question arises, name the basic and functional unit of heredity, then answer is genes. So genes is the basic and functional unit of heredity. Genes make up our body, our DNA structure. As I told you, genes carry DNA. Human beings have two copies of each gene known as alleles, right? For every trait, we have genes, and each gene has two copies. And these two copies for a particular trait, I am repeating, these copies of genes for a particular trait is called as allele. Say if we say about the color of the skin, then we have two copies, right? And these two copy for a particular trait, that is the color of skin, is called as allele. Okay. Likewise, blood group, we have, say, IONA. So this is kind of allele for a particular trait. Which trait? Here I have given you example, blood group. Okay. So this is the way, I mean, to write the allele. Okay. To write about the genes or their allele, right? These allele of a genes are responsible for the variation and uniqueness of the each individual. So these are the alleles of genes, are they are responsible for any kind of variation or uniqueness in each individual. The different variation of a particular gene is called as allele, as I told you. Now coming to the next topic, we have accumulation of variation during reproduction. How this variation occurs during the process of reproduction. Let's see. Uh, See, we have inheritance, as I told you, the transformation of characters from one generation to another generation. So inheritance from previous generation provide both common basic and body design and subtle the change in it. Okay, inheritance of characteristics means the transformation of character from one parents to another parents, sorry, for in one generation to another generation, or from parents to their offsprings. So the basic common structure is the same, and there are subtle little bit changes are there for the next generation. What would happen when this new generation form in its turn or reproduce? What happened when this new generation form? The second generation will have the difference that they inherit from first generation, or as well newly created differences. As I told you, they have the same basic structure, they have the same basic body's design, but maybe due to the mutation, maybe due to the environmental condition, or maybe due to the some or the other reason, they have maybe the little changes during the creation of new generation, or a new or new uh, new or the formation of new offspring. So the second generation, which we call as offsprings, so the second generation will have difference that they inherit from first generation as well as newly created differences. So the second generation will have maybe the inherited trait also, or as well as the differences also, due to so many factors, like as I told you, mutation or environment factor. So I'm repeating, the second generation will have differences. Why? Because of mutation as well as environmental factors that they inherit from first generation as well as newly created differences. Figure 1, see, they have given you this figure. See, in figure 1 would represent the situation in a single individual, right? Reproduce as happen asexual reproduction, as happen is asexual reproduction. This single individual form two new individuals, right? Single individual reproduce and happen in a single asexual reproduction. If one bacterium divided, if we take the example of bacteria, if one bacterium divided, then it results in the two bacteria, right? And again they divided, they form four bacteria generated, and would have the similar, very similar to each other, right? There would be only one minor differences between them generated due to the small inaccuracy in DNA copying. Maybe the changes are there because of the inaccuracy of copying DNA, right? Which we called as mutation. Okay. So so there would be only one minor difference between them generated due to the small inaccuracy in DNA copying. However, if sexual reproduction involved, even the greater diversity is generated, because in sexual reproduction they have male and female both partner, right? And genetic material is coming from male as well as female. Okay. So do all these variation in the species have equal chances of surviving in the environment or in which they find themselves? Obviously not, because the conditions are different. Depending upon the nature of variation, different individual would have different kind of advantages. They have given you an example of bacteria, like bacteria that can withstand with heat will survive better in the heat waves. Some variations do not help in the organisms to adjust to the changes in the environment, and they may die and become extinct. Okay. Those organisms which cannot, cope up with the environment, or they cannot adjust to their environment, they die and become extinct. Okay. So see, they have given you this example. With the help of this example, see, this is a single individual. When it divide, it form two new individuals of the same, but little variation is there because of so many factors. Maybe see the changes in their color, so maybe that is due to the environmental factor, as well as there may be a little bit change in their DNA copying also. So again, when it divided, it form, again see the changes are there. Okay. See, these changes are there. Okay. And this also, the color changes there, and these variations are normally due to, maybe this is a in the case of asexual reproduction, still the changes are there, because, but these are very nominal, very minor changes are there because of the sudden change in the DNA copying. Okay. But huge variation is there in case of sexual reproduction. Okay. Where the two individual involved in the reproduction process. So let's do, this is all about today's worksheet. Let's do practice exercise. We have first hereditary. Okay, you can write the definition of hereditary from here. This is the definition of hereditary. This is the definition of your variation. DNA is hereditary material in the human, in almost all the organism. You can write all these. Chromosome, you can write, is a thread-like structure which carry the genetic information from one generation to another generation. Like this. Trait, we have a specific characteristics of an organism. Trait are determined by the genes, or you can write this. And gene, you can write the answer of gene from here. See, this is the answer of your gene, right? Next we have question that if a trait A exhibit in 10% of the population of an asexual reproduction species and a trait B exists in the 60% of the same population, which trait is likely to be arisen earlier? Okay. So in case of if we talk about asexual reproduction, you can answer the question, you can answer this question from by taking the example of this. See, if we take the example of asexual reproduction, the cells produce a copy or a copy of their DNA through the same chemical reactions, or maybe, and the copying of DNA is not, if copying of DNA is not accurate, so some variation is there, which we have already studied in this paragraph. Okay, so if we observe, if the on the behalf of this, we can say that if a trait is present only in 10% population, it likely to be, okay, that it likely to it more likely that the trait has been arisen recently, where in case of B trait it exists, which exists in 60%, have the same population arisen earlier. So the answer, if you want to write, then trait B exists, which exists in 60% of the same population that arisen earlier as compared to this 10%. So answer is this 60%, right? So this is all about today's worksheet. I hope you understand it. So like the video, share with your friends and subscribe the channel. Thank you, bache. Take care.